Lieutenant Commander Raya Morrison stood at attention in the United Earth Defense Council chamber, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display, showing humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. The beings called themselves the Eternals, a race of immortal humanoids who had crossed galaxies to reach Earth. Their ambassador, tall and ethereally beautiful with silver-white skin and flowing robes, spoke with a voice that seemed to echo through time itself. "We offer you the stars," the being said, spreading arms that sparkled with bioluminescent patterns. "Our technology, our knowledge, our very essence, all can be yours. We ask only for volunteers to help us understand your remarkable species." Raya's jaw tightened. 20 years in Earth's defense forces had taught her that nothing came without a price, especially not gifts from gods. "How many volunteers?" General Santos asked from his position at the head of the council table. The other military and civilian leaders leaned forward, faces eager in the soft blue light of the hologram. "A mere 1,000 to start," the ambassador replied. "They will be treated with the utmost care and respect. Think of it as a cultural exchange program." Raya couldn't stay silent any longer. "And what exactly will these volunteers be exchanging, Ambassador?" The words came out sharper than intended, drawing disapproving looks from several council members. The ambassador's silver eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Their perspective, Commander Morrison. Their unique human insight. Nothing more." But Raya had seen the way those eyes had flickered, just for a moment. When saying nothing more, 20 years of interrogating prisoners and negotiating with hostile forces had taught her to read even alien body language. The Eternals were lying. Over the next 3 months, as humanity celebrated its new alien benefactors and marveled at their gifts of clean energy and medical advances, Raya watched. She documented every inconsistency, every missing detail in the Eternal story. The volunteers departed in gleaming silver ships, waving to cheering crowds. But their video messages home seemed oddly stilted, their eyes vacant. "You're becoming obsessed," Morrison, her superior officer, Admiral Chen, warned her. "The Eternals have done nothing but help us. Don't let paranoia destroy this opportunity." But then the first volunteers began returning. They looked healthy enough, but something was different. The light had gone out of their eyes. They spoke of their experiences in flat, rehearsed tones, and they all insisted that more humans should volunteer. Raya started tracking them secretly. Many disappeared into secured Eternal facilities that hadn't been part of the original agreement. Others began recruiting aggressively, using techniques that seemed designed to prey on the vulnerable and desperate. Late one night, as she was reviewing security footage of the latest volunteer departure, her office door chimed. "Enter," she called, not looking up from her screens. "You see too much, Commander Morrison." The voice was like crystal wind chimes, beautiful and alien. Raya's hand moved to her sidearm as she turned to face the Eternal standing in her doorway. This one was different from the ambassador, darker, with swirling patterns that pulsed an angry red beneath translucent skin. "I see what you're trying to hide," Raya replied, keeping her voice steady. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" The Eternal smiled, revealing teeth that seemed carved from starlight. "We had hoped to do this gradually, to ease your species into its new role. But perhaps the time for subtlety has passed." Alarms began blaring throughout the base. On her screens, Raya watched massive ships emerge from hyperspace, far more than the handful the Eternals had claimed to possess. They took up attack positions around Earth's major cities. "You're right, Commander," the Eternal said. "Everything has a price. Immortality most of all. We need your people, their vital essence, their adaptability, their very souls, to sustain our dying race. We tried to make it peaceful, but humanity's salvation will come at a cost." Raya's finger tightened on her weapon's trigger. "Humanity's salvation, or yours?" The Eternal smile turned cruel. "The distinction no longer matters. The harvest begins now." As weapons fire lit up the night sky and panic spread across the globe, Raya made a silent vow. The Eternals might be immortal, but she would find a way to make them pay for underestimating humanity's will to survive. The real war was just beginning. The underground bunker rumbled as another Eternal warship passed overhead. Raya Morrison studied the holographic data stolen from their facilities, her face illuminated by streams of alien text. Around her, the remaining members of Earth's Defense Council watched in horror as she decoded the truth. "They're dying," she explained, manipulating the display to show cellular degradation patterns. "The Eternals aren't truly immortal. Their regenerative abilities are failing. Each generation is weaker than the last. And they need us to fix it," General Santos concluded, his face grim in the dim light. "Not just fix it." Raya pulled up images that made several council members recoil. "They're trying to merge their genetic code with ours. Human adaptability combined with their regenerative capabilities. The volunteers aren't test subjects. They're raw materials." The evidence was damning. Extraction chambers designed to break down human tissue. Massive cloning facilities. Genetic splicing labs that stretched for kilometers beneath the Earth's surface. The Eternals weren't sharing technology. They were harvesting humanity's biological uniqueness to save themselves. "We've confirmed over 10,000 missing in the last week alone," reported Admiral Chen, his usual composure cracking. "Their ships are taking people right off the streets now. No more pretense of volunteering." Raya's fists clenched. "We need to strike back. Now, while they still think we're helpless." "With what?" Santos demanded. "They've disabled most of our military infrastructure. Our remaining weapons barely scratch their shields. Then we use their own technology against them." Raya activated another hologram. Schematics she'd stolen during her escape from the Eternal facility. Their ships run on crystalline matrices that channel energy similarly to human neural pathways. If we can disrupt those patterns. A massive explosion rocked the bunker, cutting off her words. Emergency lights flashed as dust rained from the ceiling. "They found us," Chen announced, checking his tactical display. "Multiple ships converging on our position." "Download everything," Raya ordered, already moving toward the weapons locker. "We'll split into teams. Half evacuate to the secondary site, half provide cover." "And go where?" Santos asked. "There's nowhere left to hide." Raya pulled out a case containing vials of luminescent liquid. More stolen tech. Underground. The old mining networks. Their sensors can't penetrate that deep, and I found something in their data about mineral formations that interfere with their power systems. "You want us to hide like rats?" Chen's voice was bitter. "I want us to survive," Raya shot back. "To gather intelligence, build resistance, find their weaknesses. The Eternals think in centuries. We need to think long-term too." Another explosion, closer this time. The sound of energy weapons discharging echoed through the corridors. "They're inside the perimeter," Santos reported. 2 minutes at most. Raya distributed weapons and data crystals to the council members. "Remember, if captured, use the neural scramblers. Don't let them extract any information." She didn't need to explain what the Eternals did to prisoners to get what they wanted. As they split into their assigned teams, Raya caught a glimpse of her reflection in a darkened screen. Her face was harder than she remembered, scored with new lines of strain and determination. The Eternals had claimed to offer humanity salvation, but they taught them something far more valuable: the true meaning of survival. The first Eternal troops breached the bunker's outer doors. Just as Raya's team finished setting the charges, she gave the evacuation signal, then took aim at the crystalline power cores visible beneath the enemy's translucent armor. Time to show these so-called immortals that humanity wouldn't go quietly into extinction. The real resistance was about to begin. 6 months into the occupation, humanity's resistance had gone deep, literally. The abandoned vibranium mines beneath the Ural Mountains became their new command center, the mineral's unique properties creating a natural shield against eternal sensors. Raya surveyed the makeshift war room they'd carved from the bedrock. Stolen eternal tech merged with human ingenuity. Crystalline computers interfaced with jury-rigged mining equipment, weapon prototypes tested in the deeper tunnels. The resistance had grown, gathering survivors and scientists who'd escaped the harvest. Commander Morrison, a junior officer, rushed in. The defector has provided more intel. The defector was Kren, an eternal scientist who'd reached out to the resistance after discovering the full scope of his species' plans. His information had already saved thousands. In the interrogation chamber, Kren's translucent skin pulsed with weak light, a sign of the mind's dampening effect on eternal biology. "Your species' cellular reconstruction rate," he explained, pointing to complex molecular diagrams. "It's the key. We thought we could simply extract and replicate it, but the process is tied to your neural patterns, your survival instinct. That's why the harvesting doesn't work," Raya concluded. "You can't separate our physical adaptability from our consciousness." "Precisely. But the Eternal High Command refuses to accept this. They're accelerating the program, developing more invasive extraction methods. They plan to process your entire population within the next solar cycle." Raya studied the tactical displays showing eternal harvest chips across the globe. "How long?" 8 months, maximum. Our degradation is accelerating." Without a solution, Kren's voice trailed off. A blast rocked the chamber. Alarms blared throughout the complex. "Multiple breach points," came the alert. "They found a way through the mineral shield." Raya accessed the security feeds. Eternal strike teams were pouring into the upper tunnels, their weapons modified to function in the dampening field. "Evacuation Protocol Alpha," she ordered through the command network. "All non-essential personnel to the deep shelters. Research teams, secure the prototypes. Combat units to defensive positions." "The prototype," Kren insisted. "It's ready. We have to use it now." The prototype was their riskiest weapon, a modified version of the Eternal's own genetic manipulation technology designed to target their regenerative abilities. But it was untested, potentially devastating to both species. Another explosion, closer. The lights flickered. "They're targeting power systems," reported General Santos. 10 minutes until backup generators fail." Raya made her decision. "Deploy the prototype. All units fall back to minimum safe distance, and get me a secure channel to their command ship." As her troops executed the orders, Raya faced the communication screen. The Eternal Supreme Commander's face appeared, beautiful and terrible. "Your resistance ends now," the commander declared. "Surrender, and we may preserve a breeding population." "You're right about one thing," Raya replied. "This ends now, but not the way you planned." She activated the prototype's launch sequence. "You should have learned more about us before trying to harvest us. Humans don't just adapt to survive. We change the rules of survival itself." The prototype missiles streaked upward through the mine shafts, carrying humanity's desperate counterstrike toward the Eternal fleet above. The real test of both species' ability to survive was about to begin. The prototype weapons' effects exceeded all expectations. Within hours of deployment, reports flooded in from resistance cells worldwide. Eternal troops collapsing, their regenerative abilities failing catastrophically. But victory came with a terrible price. "Atmospheric contamination spreading," reported Dr. Yumi Tanaka, chief of their medical division. "The weapons affecting human cellular regeneration too, not as severely, but enough to be dangerous long-term." Raya studied the global infection maps. "How long until it reaches critical levels?" 3 days, maybe 4. After that, both species face extinction. The Resistance's underground command center had become a frantic research hub. Human and Eternal scientists worked side by side, racing to find a solution. Kren's defection had triggered others, Eternals who opposed their leadership's desperate genocide. "Their mothership holds the key," Kren explained, showing schematics of a massive vessel in high orbit. The original genetic templates of both our species are stored there. With them, we could synthesize a cure. And their high command knows this, Raya concluded. That's why they haven't retreated despite losing ground forces. The plan came together quickly because they had no choice. While research teams worked on containment measures, Raya assembled an assault team. They had one shot at reaching the mothership's secure laboratories. Using modified eternal transport technology, they infiltrated through the vessel's waste reclamation systems. The ship's corridors were eerily empty. Most of the crew had succumbed to the prototype weapon. Life support systems failing throughout the ship, reported Lieutenant Walsh as they fought their way toward the central labs. Their backup systems are degrading faster than expected. They found the Eternal Supreme Commander in the main genetics facility, surrounded by dead or dying guards. The once beautiful being's skin had turned gray, its bioluminescence flickering weakly. "You've doomed us all," the commander rasped. "You did that yourself," Raya replied, "when you decided genocide was preferable to cooperation." The genetic templates were there, preserved in crystalline stasis fields. But as Raya's team began the download process, the ship's systems started failing catastrophically. "Hull breach in sections 12 through 15, Walsh warned. "Reactor containment destabilizing." "Copy everything," Raya ordered. "We came here to save both species, and that's what we're going to do." The ship shuddered around them as they raced back to their extraction point, precious genetic data in hand. They had the cure, if they could survive long enough to use it. The mothership exploded as their transport cleared the debris field, illuminating Earth's atmosphere like a second sun. Below, humans and Eternals alike watched the light show, united in their desperate wait for salvation or extinction. The race to synthesize a cure turned Earth's surviving laboratories into crucibles of desperate innovation. With both species' genetic templates recovered from the mothership, human and Eternal scientists worked to undo the damage their conflict had caused. The templates reveal something extraordinary, Dr. Tanaka announced during a global emergency conference. The Eternals didn't evolve naturally. They were engineered by the same prehistoric civilization that shaped early human development. The genetic evidence was irrefutable. Both species shared markers of ancient manipulation, designed to develop in different but complementary directions. Humans got adaptability and innovation. Eternals got regeneration and longevity. They were meant to evolve together, not destroy each other. Raya watched the data streams from the command bunker's medical bay, where casualties from both species fought for survival. "How long until the cure is ready?" "We've synthesized a prototype," Tanaka replied. "But there's a complication. The treatment requires complete genetic resequencing. The Eternals will lose their immortality, and humans will lose some of our adaptability." The choice was impossible but necessary. Earth's atmosphere was becoming toxic to both species. Without treatment, neither would survive another month. "Both species will become something new," Kren observed. "Neither fully human nor eternal. A true fusion, as our creators intended." The surviving Eternal leadership, facing extinction, finally agreed to cooperation. Global distribution centers were established, treating millions daily. The process was painful, but effective. Those who survived emerged changed, still recognizably themselves, but fundamentally altered. 1 month later, Raya stood at the podium before the newly formed Joint Species Council. The chamber held both humans and former Eternals, their appearances now somewhere between their original forms. "We fought for survival," she addressed the assembly, "but found something more valuable: understanding. Our creators saw potential in both our species. Together, we're stronger than either of us alone." The reconstruction would take decades. Cities needed rebuilding, new social structures had to be formed, and both species had to learn to coexist. But they had time now, not the endless centuries of the Eternals, but enough to build something lasting. As she looked out over the assembled delegates, Raya saw neither humans nor Eternals, but survivors who had paid the ultimate price for wisdom. They had lost their separate identities but gained a shared future. The war was over. Evolution, true evolution, could finally begin.